Well, before we start sitting, I just wanted to acknowledge or uh, send that word metta to particularly the people of Myanmar or Burma as I know it. And for all the destruction, it ran north-south, and Sagang Hills are where a lot of retreats were uh, taught, both Burmese Sayadaws and Western teachers. And the epicenter was there on the Irrawaddy River. So it's beautiful temples, hills. It's gorgeous, but I don't know what it is today. But I just all I the amount of suffering when people lose their homes and their friends and their community. It's a big deal. We know from our fires something about it, but not that big of a earthquake. And and the other thing is, Myanmar is it's a poor country. They and they're in the middle of a civil war. You know, disastrous. You know. So anyway, I'd like to dedicate this whole evening to the people of Myanmar, of Burma, and that we send our blessings, seen and unseen, so that they may find some solace and peace, and they have a strong religion, but things have been so disrupted. So, so just taking a moment first and just feeling your heart, you know, it's always a good place to start this practice, you know, and just taking a moment to uh, kind of settle that flippy mind of yours on your heart. You know, it's quite flippant, you know, and it's a culture of overchoice. So we easily uh, disappear into choices and forget sometimes the origin of things. And then, really, from the heart, to take in the whole. And the whole in this particular arena is this body in all its wonderful and complexities, and this mind that is our is the wondrous tool of the cultural possibility of taking care of ourselves, and also uh, that inspires us to look towards freedom. So just feeling your breath and maybe that vulnerability that is sometimes so protected by our mind and our bravado and our bodies, and realize this is all temporal stuff. There's no place more precious than this moment. And our practice is the renewal of this moment. May we settle into body, to heart and mind, and become instruments for the self awakening and the assistance of others so they may awaken as well. So, this practice, first of all, is really based on one breath, one moment at a time. So, it's enough just to feel the rising and passing, the in and out. It's also to note that there is something knowing it. Whatever is knowing it has this capacity to not be limited to really space or time. And so we have this capacity for a panoramic awareness, one that is holding where you sit and in a sense of who you think you are, and also of the vast open space, which is this room holding each of you in relationship to another, this truth of non separateness. And you can focus on the minutia of the breath coming in and going out, or the simple sound of Buddho, or this panoramic awareness of what's behind you, in front of you, to each side of you, above you and below you, holding all things. Then your thoughts. bless us. So we're going to take just about a 5-minute break here, and then we'll come back and I'll babble a little. We'll see where it goes. I have no idea, nor do I want to. Uh, you know, I already did that. Now we see what happens. So please, I think you pretty much are looking around to see everybody that you know the place. I know the place. We know the place. So please go and I don't advise walking outside right now unless you have a raincoat, you know. Uh, but you can hear. So please go and stay out of trouble, and we'll ring a bell in about 5 minutes or so to call you in to see what's next. Okay, good. I'm a little slow these days, to say the least. So I want to go back to first on the Irrawaddy River and what is Sagang Hills in Burma, Myanmar, and just I hope the community just has a sense of care and metta for all for the fear and the grief. And one of the things about the Sagang Hills is those are all 1,000-year-old temples, and have been there a long time. And I think they got pretty busted, because it was right on the fault of the 7.7. So I, as community, send care and love and to them. So tonight I had an approach, believe it or not, and I'm going to actually probably do it in reverse because I like things in reverse. It's like, how do you put that thing in reverse? Um, and there's 4 fundamentals to Buddhism. If you want to know whether it's Buddhism or not, you check these 4, and then you can know whether it is or not. It's pretty simple a way of designating, uh, what it is, and it's traditionally talked about as our investigation into impermanence, into unsatisfactoriness, into the selfless nature of the Dharma and of us. And then the 4th one is my favorite, Nirvana. It's like, oh, freedom does exist, and it is propagated by these simple practices that point directly at an untangled mind and an untangled heart and a fearless body. That's the crux of this. I know Adam kind of designated this as Impermanence month. Well, guess what? It's always impermanence. I don't care what you think or what you do. It's always impermanent. And in some ways, this is one of to me, I can say of my 50, 60 years of this, the most important, is if you understand impermanence, and the thing is, there is a kind of a obvious level, which is true, and that's the simplicity of it. And then there is a deeper truth there. And one of the truths of this practice is there is the obvious and the subtle. And the subtle has to do with the nature of that impermanence, that it's actually all things conditioned, all things conditioned are impermanent by nature. Oh, that's a huge thing. So, it's really saying don't get stuck anywhere. Um, but I want to I want to jump to so it's impermanence, uh, uh, unsatisfactoriness. Uh, it's called anatta or selfless or no self or uh, beyond the identity itself, um, and nirvana. And I would like to say that this is all based on nirvana. You know, it can't be anything but that. And what is the nature of nirvana is it's not, it doesn't have a nature. It's just to be paradoxical. It's not a something, um, but it is experienceable, and it is a way to, from an experience, start looking at the world from a different angle. You know, we're very materialistic, so we look at things materialistically. But if we're looking from Nibbana, it simply means, oh, it is empty of any self nature. It is simply something that all that is looked at and seen is transient, and all things that are transient will end in suffering. Doesn't sound very good, does it? But anyway, that is the truth, you know. Um, and that there wasn't really anybody behind it, that it was just simply these components that were together, and those components looked like, quote, thing or self or being or something, but that's not what it is. It's actually more than that, you know. And when we get to this determination that somehow nibbana or nirvana, which I love in Thailand, they're all, I guess it was the group Nirvana, So there's a lot of people selling these T-shirts with Nirvana on it. I'm going, I wonder if any of them know what they mean by that, you know? Uh, but it is true, you know. The Buddha expounded it as that is the most and the least, and so it is not something, it's not something because it's not material. You can't put your finger on it, but you can experience it, And one of the beauties of this particular practice is that there is kind of this truth of, I think it's Ajahn Buddhadasa, and he went to teach at at Siriraj, the biggest hospital in Bangkok, and uh, and he said, "I'm going to teach about nirvana," and they're mostly nurses and I don't know doctors, and they were all part of the caretaking collective community there, and they said, "Oh no, no, we're not ready for that." And one of the things that's been interesting to me is the Thai view of it, is that they do not want to be experiencing this thing called nirvana because it means that no family, no, you know, all the things that they consider important don't exist in that realm. And yet, what's interesting about that realm is that, yes, it's true, it's beyond that. but it doesn't negate that. So it doesn't mean that, just because you experience some level of freedom, some level of nibbana, that you lose your personality, your relationships. You actually don't. You don't lose anything. All you do is you shift your perspective, your perspective from a materialistic perspective to this perspective of freedom. Oh, you know, do I need to hold on to that? Do I need to uh, get more or make it bigger, or it's simply that. It's this capacity to let it go. Now, one of the truths for me was I was probably, I think I was 24 years old, and I'd been sitting for some years by then, and I was one of those people that thought I could just sit through everything, you know, and pretty much I did, I had a good body then. I could sit on the floor and sit for 3 hours, not a problem, you know, and uh, and that was great, you know. But there was one moment that, in all my experience, very simple moment, you know, that I was in the front row. My teacher was talking. He said, uh, "And your face is not what it seems." And so there was this, suddenly the idea of image. Uh, Suddenly, it was just a little moment, and it cracked my um, my hold, which is what it was. It was just a hold on things. And it broke that just for a second. So it just snapped. And in that moment, I had to readjust my thinking, because my thinking was totally materialistic. I was going to get something, and Nibbana was something that I could get, right? Well, it wasn't that at all. But it was what brought me to this um, this moment of seeing through. And the thing is, they talk about it in the actually different levels of it, see through. And it changed my perspective on things. It didn't change anything else, just my perspective. The world stayed the same. But the perspective was different. And so in many ways, I see that, you think, oh, well, that's, John something 60 years ago or whatever, you know. Um, that happens all the time. And it's really where Ajahn Buddhadasa was, when he was talking to the the nurses and doctors and helpers at Siriraj, that he was saying, "Oh no, you can all do this, you know, and you're not going to lose anything for it." And he talked about it as momentary nibbana. So it wasn't the Big Bang theory, which is great and is true. It was just that every moment that you can see through is one way of saying it. Another one is of truly letting go for just a moment, you know. And that in that moment of, is actually a moment of seeing, is we see the nature or the complexity of what we live in, you know. Incredibly complex creatures, you know. And in that moment, we kind of break the veil for a moment. And to break that veil for a moment uh, shifts our attention away from the material towards something that's no longer it is no longer subject to the material world. And in some ways, I think everyone probably in this room has had some piece of this. This is not something foreign to you. This is something that has been there all along. You haven't been able to put a name on it. Maybe that's good. Um, and or a belief system, because that's what people do. You know, people are we are such weird creatures. The moment we have this, you know, like a little flash or insight, then we want to make it into a religion or we want to make it into something instead of letting it be nothing from where it came from and where it's going. But instead, we kind of have this thing about, well, we have to put a belief system on it, you know. And my job here is to bust that any belief system, you know, because all belief systems are, they all end up in dukkha. They all end up in suffering, you know, whether it's suffering, maybe not for you, but for someone else. It's always that thing of setting the world up against itself, even though uh, it's not actually true, but it is what we do, you know. And whether it's, you know, and religion is one of the most dangerous ones I know of, you know, because we set ourselves up and, you know, sometimes we abandon our intelligence. Other times we concretize it and make it into something so solid that the experience, you know, whether it was a moment of, you know, Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad, in that moment, it wasn't anything. And then we took and made some kind of comfort in a belief system around it. And I'm sorry, this is what we do. And so, in some ways, what I'm trying to advocate is you have to keep busting. You know, I used to, you know, this movie Ghostbusters. It was kind of like, well, you have to bust those belief systems over and over, because as soon as you break some connection to it, you formulate something else. And it's what are those formulas about? They're about making you feel comfortable. That's really what they are. And not that that's good or bad, it's just that's what we do, you know. And what this is saying is, no, they're really, you know, if you're looking at, now I'm going to jump here to impermanence, if everything is just this phenomena of rising and passing away, and there is this uh, addiction to solidifying things so that we feel safe. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just to know that that's what we do, you know. And wonder if there was which is scary, by the way, an experience where there is no concrete self or belief system or anything that's holding anything. And that suddenly we are just, in a sense, kind of seeing the world coming and going at at phenomenal speeds, and we're not making anything out of it, you know. Now that's what I would like, you know. And I myself, I know I try to concretize the damn thing, you know, and make it, oh, you know, my experience of 60 years ago is you know, an ultimate truth. No, it's not an ultimate truth. It's just something that broke a little bit of belief or concretizing that I was caught in, you know. And then it gave me a chance to, you know, we can say, see through, you know. And what are we seeing through? We're seeing through our um, concretizing of the material world. Yes. Now I got it. This is real. You know, uh, no, it ain't real. It's just a passing show, you know. But we have to be told that over and over again, and then we start practicing this practice of sitting that takes, it takes discipline, a lot of effort, and we have to be careful because again, we can take and make something out of it. And what I'm trying to advocate is don't make anything out of it. It's really let it, you know, I mean, the most beautiful thing about sitting is it's not anything, you know. Get off the train, you know. What is the train? The train is the train of association. It's get off the train, you know. There may be uh, more going on here than our, we have these phenomenal minds, and I'm totally, enamored, which is the wrong thing to be uh, with it. And
Switch.
no, no, but it's on. Can you hear me now? Well, you should. It's problematic. Uh, Thank you, Robin. That's it's part of the mechanical reality of the concepts. But then it has to have batteries, unfortunately. Yes, there we go. Now you can hear me double. No. So I think one of the uh, greatest insights, there is, of course, I don't want to say that uh, one of the greatest teachings here, which I don't like to admit, in my life has been suffering. You know, it's really been a great teacher. And how long I hold on to it is up to me. You know, I had some pretty rough times, and I feel like, oh, okay, so that was then, and now is now. And I know many people harbor or rely on the past because it's about their identity and maybe the identity that was not so good and not so happy, and they suffered for it, and then they carried that around like a chip on their shoulder. And so I realized I could have, and I think a little while I did kind of carry it, but it was great because it just turned me into a rebel. I just wanted to kick over everything I saw. You know, which brought me to India in the '60s, and I am so fortunate to have met uh, some of the most amazing teachers. And I wish I could say, oh, somehow they speak through me, but I think it's more like I fumble through who they were. And a lot of times I have to say, I would go and I would spend, I remember Kalu Rinpoche. I was lived at his monastery, and he looked like E.T., you know, I mean, really ET. You look at it, oh my God. And, but, I used to go, I went to interviews, I would go to his talks, I was at the monastery for a long time. I didn't get it. It was like, I would just kind of play acting, you know, and, uh, and so I know, uh, you know, I have some very good friends that were, really, serious. And one of the difficulties for me was I'm very dyslexic and ADHD, and so learning Tibetan, which everybody there learned Tibetan but me, you know, and so I had to figure out something else. Oh, wait, you know, it's not about learning something; it's about de-learning something, and that's really where I went. Was I have to de-learn all that, all the suffering, all the confusion, all the desires for it to be different than it is. I'd let all that go, you know. And I'm grateful that even though I didn't understand the teachings a lot, and some of it, I really believe this, a lot of it was just, and I think this is true for you, by the way, it's called osmosis. It's the words are pointing towards something, but they aren't what's going on here. You know that, right? This is the cover up, the words, but they keep you interested, and that's my point. So I need to keep you interested, but it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that you know is it can't be seen, it can't be enumerated in all the numbers, it can't be uh, solidified into something. It can only be pointed at. And as it's pointed at, then one begins to let go of the objects that are being pointed at. And if you can let go of the objects that are being pointed at, there's actually still something going on. But it's not what's being pointed at. And we use words. Words I love wordsmith. I think it's a fabulous thing. But also I know that this is just a facade for something much, much more profound and bigger. And when you come here, you know, um, unfortunately, this isn't about me or what I know or how it is. It's about us. You know, it takes all of us in this collective and everybody on Zoom. We are here as a collective with this phenomenal intention. And the intention is to wake up. And to wake up is not something that, I wish it could be just one big swoop and you would get it and that would be it. I used to think I went to a lot of different teachers and I always thought, I don't know, Muktananda or someone he used to take a peacock feather and hit you on the head and you'd bounce around like a jumping jack, That wasn't it for me, you know. What was it was the fact that uh, you come and you sit and you begin to understand. First, there's a language here that has to be understood. But that language it doesn't have to be that extreme. It's just knowing the fundamentals, you know. The word impermanence. Sheesh. Is that a big word? I don't think so. But the ramifications of what that is pointing at is phenomenal. You know, I always thought, well, You know, if you understood that one word and you could really take it to its depth, there is the kind of the relative world that we live in, which is, thoughts, body sensations, memories, fantasies, all of that. That's all stuff that arises. And what's its nature? It always passes away and something new arises. And as we begin to note that this is how it works, you know, then there is a sense of, I'll use the word spaciousness because it no longer is attached to the objects of whether it's memory or thought or a plan or fantasy or, uh, you know, whatever. Um, it's just a way of how things kind of let go of themselves. And your objective here, and this is the thing about sitting meditation, what is the main thing that happens? You keep going off. There I go again. And every time that you go off and you remember, because that's a lot of this has to do with remember, you remember to let go and come back to 0 point, actually, to not something, or just to the breath, you know. And if you let go of that, then you do this consistently over and over again. And I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. And but what happens is there is the tendency to grip. And the problem with gripping is it is indicative of suffering. Got it. And this is saying, I don't got it. Never got it. You know? And whatever it is, it's fine. And I'll let go of that. And then I'll reappear again and again and again until this particular journey is going to end, you know. And so everybody in this room, you're going to die. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? You know, it's great, huh? Just really, and yet, how do we learn? Sometimes it takes really holding on tight. I think that's one of the things about relationships that go kind of upside down or whatever, or life or jobs or situations. Those are great opportunities. But of course, our emotions get kind of caught in it, and then uh, we look for something or someone to blame a lot of times. Not good enough, you know. Really not good enough, you know. We have to take responsibility for we're the ones grasping, no one else. No matter what anybody has done or allowed, that it's us holding on, you know. It makes me sad, because I think, oh, you're holding on to something that's not even here anymore. And yet you're carrying that carcass around as if it was something that was alive and well. Well, that's back there. That's no longer here. It's past. And and you now are in a practice which is saying, oh, here's the breath. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's gone. Oh, I come back again. Oh, there it is again. And you keep teaching yourself every moment of how. This is why I think meditation practice is so important, because it's just teaching you to let go in the moment. And if you repeat it enough times, it starts to happen in the grocery store, you know, or wherever you may be, and uh, and you let go, and and then suddenly every moment of letting go, of course, something comes back in. But if there can be just a pause there, just a moment between the letting go and the reappearing of the grasping, oh, I like that or I don't like that. And it's pretty simple, that's all we are. We're pretty simple in that way. We either like something or we don't, you know, and how heavy handed we are with it. Uh, it has to do with our hearts, you know. And if we can learn how to just simply let go again and again, and I'll say, I sometimes I didn't know how to let go, you know, and when I didn't, I suffered, and I needed that teaching at that time, unfortunately for me, you know, but to do it again and again, I kind of got to the point where, oh, you know what? If I don't, I suffer. So one of the last pieces I want to just, it's interesting because there's the impermanence, there's the suffering or the unsatisfactoriness of a lot of life. Then there is the selfless nature of experience. Okay, they use the words. It's interesting, anatta. Well, uh, where it came from, anatta, it came from the word in the Hindu tradition is self, and Buddha kind of went, well, not really, you know, that's that's uh, that's that's going to cause some problems, you know. So what are we doing here? What are you teaching yourself? And I like the language of this capacity to thin the self out, you know. So nothing is so important. And that's really thinning the self out. And thinning the self out, to me, is the crux of the kind of the precursor to Nirvana, is you learn how to thin the self out. But of course, first you have to learn the truth of it, and the clinging to it, and then the suffering within that, to get to a place where you just, I don't want to, I don't need to do this anymore. If I keep doing this, it's going to kill me. And but if I learn to thin myself out, means that, you know, one of the beauties of thinning yourself out, of anatta, of, I think it's kind of big thing, no self. That's kind of, uh, I don't know about that, you know, as language. But thinning out makes sense to me as we thin ourselves out. And then what the great beauty of this is that when we do thin ourselves out and we begin to allow that, what Ajahn Buddhadasa called momentary nibbana, arise in our experience, then the thing that's moved is the heart. You know, suddenly the heart goes, "Oh, I'm not alone," and all are included. and nothing has ever been separate. And with that, we really come to this place of the great, vast heart that holds all things, you know. And as human beings, this is our power. This is our most profound power, is the inclusion and the fact that we care. We care about everything. There's nothing separate from us. That was all the illusion. And the separateness has caused tremendous confusion and suffering. And this capacity to um, kind of hold the whole world, all experience, then, and you can say, oh, non-separateness is one way of speaking of it. And non-separateness cares, So the fundamentals ultimately are about caring and about love, about compassion, about sympathetic joy. These are the result of an open and spacious mind, body, heart, you know. So I babble on and on. I'll keep going if you want me to, but I was thinking if you had a question about, the nature of Nibbana or the nature of, which it doesn't have one, but it's still, there you may have questions, and maybe I have an answer, maybe I don't. Do you want to see
thank
where
you,
we go?
Yeah, Jen will get the people in the hall. And then for those of you on Zoom, this is Robin in the back. And you can just go to the more or reactions and raise your hand, or you can wave and we might see you. All right. And then Jen will call on you all.
Okay, this is Jen. I'm going to pass the mic in the hall. Start with your name.
Hi, this is Douglas. Thank you, John, for your very worthy talk. I really enjoyed that and really touched me very deep. So my question is that in contemplating Nibbana and the experience of that, I encounter a degree of fear of letting go. How do you address that?
Well, first of all, Nibbana has no fear. It's not possible. So it's just the preempt to your belief system of letting go of that precious Douglas, And that's all it is. It's just like, oh, I can let go of that, But that is also what is suffering. The Nibbana is not suffering. It is not caught in the world of this and that. It's actually something that, in a sense, it's outside of the realm of duality, and all we know pretty much is duality. So, yeah, we're afraid to let go of that side of it. Maybe there isn't another side, but that's the beauty, And yes, it's true. A lot of people go through, I know because I've been around this for a long time, and go through great fear just before they let go. And maybe in some ways it's preordained as the last vestige of attachment, I'll let myself go. I've worked all this way and got this far, and now I can't move, And it says, no, you can move, And so, funny creatures. Thank you, Douglas.
Okay, another question from the hall.
Hi. Funny because it was just this passing thought, and it was really like it's like, what is it exactly? Um, I find that I'm so grateful for this center, first of all, and I'm starting to at least have days of peace, and my nervous system. It's been like May 8th will be 3 years of my dog passing, but slowly but surely I'm able to get back in my body or whatever was going on. And it's because of this practice and letting go in various ways, having cracks here and there and going, oh, okay, yeah, I can go to sleep now, let that go. And then, waking up again and having another day of like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to hold on to this now, but then having cracks again. And so I guess seeing the results and seeing that the practice is kind of leading you to a way of awakening. And um, I I think I'll talk about, there was a couple things when you were talking and I really enjoyed it that came up. And one of them was I had to go to the doctor with my daughter the other day, and she's suffering in multiple ways. And I'm trying to not let my pain body get triggered by her pain body. And she spent 4 days with me, and it was just kind of real up and down, but I was able to hold some space. And so, anyways, the doctor asked her all these questions because she's not eating very well. And so she went into detail about the history of what happened at her father's house. And I left there having to relive what happened, listening to it. And I hadn't heard some of the details in a while, even though I knew it was stored in her body and I knew the history. I hadn't been trying to focus on the past. So, but anyways, and so I pictured myself, I mean, it's just the truth, being kind of violent with the stepmother in my head, of course, nothing in reality. And I kept being like, this is not very Buddhist. And so I guess if you could talk on, even though I know we're all, like you said, we're all one, my image was like how hard it was, as my daughter was 5 and 6 and these things were going on and I could not get her out of there with the custody and so on and so forth. And so I still see the image of the young child that I'm trying to protect when it's all going on, even though it's in the past.
It's in the past.
Yeah.
And that's, Meryl, that's the thing. It's in the past. And, I'm sorry, but I could never fix what happened. But I learned to love myself and even the problems, you know. And so that's all I can really say to you is learn
No,
to.
I'm definitely better about that. What about the violent thoughts? Do you have, that's the part I didn't like, where I was like, what am I, you have any suggestions on how to maybe not judge? Do I not judge the thoughts?
You have to let it go. We are violent creatures, unfortunately. And uh, and it takes a lot to let go. That the problem with violence is it takes a lot to let go of it, because again, it's about pain and it's about blame. And the pain is there. It's going to be there. The blame, that's extra. That's something you can work on. I don't have to blame. Those were circumstances. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry for her. Yeah, it's just, you know,
We're not alone, but thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome.
Question in the hall?
Hi, my name's Rory. Thank you for tonight's speech.
Thank you.
So I have found that some of my clinging has to do with an accumulation of all my life material experiences, and that I believe that's who I am. Not that I can say that's who I am, but it's kind of inherent.
Absolutely.
And the pause that occasionally occurs where I'm not attached to that. And what happens is, for me, just this energetic experience of being all in everything. It's just this really unique experience. And I find that if I try to put words to it, it shifts it. It's better just to leave it as a minute experience.
Great.
But then I fall back to this identity crisis of being in the world and clinging to the idea of who I am. And I get discouraged because I want to walk away from that. But I think I will actually understand that that's part of my ego structure. And for one reason or another, need it. Not to, can you talk about that?
Well, you do need it.
We do need it?
Okay. Yes. But I'm going to go back to what I said about thinning the self out, is that you have to see through that. And each time you see through it, you the hook or the hinge or the attachment to it loosens a little. So it's not something you immediately. I wish I could just say, I would go back to the peacock feather. I think that's a great one. It's just, and then everything would change. It doesn't work like that, you know. And we just, that's why, in some ways, I think of what Ajahn Buddhadasa's thing about uh, what he called momentary nirvana, is that those moments where there's no attachment to anything and there's a moment for you. And this is what you're pointing at to me. Am I right? Yes. And
But I didn't want to give it a word because it feels like when I try to identify things.
yeah, maybe I'm screwing it up. It doesn't matter. The truth is, every time that happens and there's an awareness of what's happening, there is a loosening. And so you will keep going through this, and there will be moments of loosening. And those moments of loosening are very important because they are creating the next identity. No, I won't say that. But the identity, and it's cool. You're going to let go little by little. I wish we could do it really boom like that, but it doesn't happen like that. We do it.
I took drugs to kind of relax the ego and relax the identity. And I'm not saying that that was a useful tool, but it was a tool.
It was a great tool for those of us who survived it. you know. Thank you. So we've come to what we're going to do is close the evening, and I want to go back to, I spent a lot of time in Burma and Thailand, and I feel their suffering, and especially so many are poor and innocent people, and they have nowhere. There's nothing, There wasn't any backup anyway, So I just, and when I say that, I just brings my heart to the front. And that's really all we're doing here is ultimately, we're trying to clear our minds, relax our body, and allow our hearts to hold all things, all things. There's not one thing that isn't a value to be held. So whatever covers my heart, may it be released. May I become the good heart. May all beings become the good heart. May our community, our Sangha, as a valuable insight, bring the good heart to all our actions, all of our relations, all of our connections, so that we may live in peace, but all others may live in peace. May we be that instrument of bringing peace to a very difficult world. And since I've been gone, I see it's gotten more complex. May all beings everywhere be happy and free.